And we're live, B.
We're
Welcome to
live.
the internet.
Oh my gosh.
Who knew? Who knew, right? Here we are. Oh, goodness sakes. Welcome, everybody. Welcome this morning to our live stream. I have to say that oh, hold on. I've got too many windows open.
I know that's always a problem, isn't
This
it?
always happens. So
I have.
now that I've gotten myself organized here, I think I've got all the windows doing what they're supposed to be doing. And it looks like we've got a great number of people here hanging out with us this morning, this afternoon. I want to introduce to you everybody. You probably already know her. Her reputation precedes her. I've got B. Lubas, who recently published How to Photograph Food, which is soon to be released here in the US on September the 29th. Correct, B?
Correct. Yes.
Excellent. And
29.
so for those of you who aren't familiar with B, I think I first came across B on Instagram at B Lubas. I'll be sure to link that down below so you can check
Oh,
her work
thanks.
out if you're not already. But food photographer, educator, microgreens enthusiast.
Yes, that's my new title.
We are so pleased to have you here with us this morning. So thank you so much, B. It's a pleasure to get to talk to you today.
Well, pleasure is all mine.
Oh my
Thank you
god.
so much for having me. It's honestly an honor.
Thank
And
you.
I saw you had like few really great guests recently. I've been watching Jenna and Kimberly was here and
Yeah.
Betty. And so I'm just so honored because those are all the photographers I admire and value. So it's
Yeah.
just great that you've invited me here. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. It's pretty remarkable, this food photography community that we're a part of in all aspects. I mean, just so incredibly supportive, so incredibly positive and creative. And
Mhm.
I'm sure you've seen quite a bit of that in the midst of your book launch. Have you been feeling the love from the community?
So much. Like, honestly, it's mind blowing. It really is mind blowing.
Yeah.
So much love and so much support. And I'm just so extremely grateful. I'm really not taking this for granted.
Oh, thank you. Well, I know that so many of us are very grateful for you to put this work out into the world. We're going to get into it here in just a little bit to kind of talk about that process. I mean, something so daunting as a book, such a massive project. And so we're very thankful that you did that work and put that out. And I know that all of us here in the US are just like on the edge of our seats waiting for the Amazon truck to pull up with our
Thank
copies
you for your
of the
patience. Not
book.
long now, not long.
Not long at all. Well, good things are worth waiting for. But before we do that, we've got a number of folks in the chat with us here this morning. And I always like to kind of kick it off with a little question, get everybody chatting and discussing a topic.
Um,
And so I just this morning I posted a photograph of some blood oranges
I've
because
seen them.
you know, I
Such a
just
great photo.
sometimes, and you know this feeling, B. You just got to get in there and be creative. I'm like, I haven't touched
Mm.
my camera in a while, and I just, I don't have time to cook anything, so I'm going to photograph some produce. The blood oranges followed me home as my excuse. But for those of you who are here in the chat with us, oh, Roberta's here, Greta's here, Stephanie, Paul, Craig, so many friendly faces that we know from Instagram and here on YouTube. But for those of you in the chat, if you could share with us your favorite produce to photograph, because I mean, there's so many options and produce is so beautiful. But B, for you, is there like a particular produce maybe recently that you've photographed or that's
I
like
just
a
probably
go-to?
microgreens, you know. That's because
Tell
I spend a lot of time with them.
tell us about
So
what started your microgreens adventure, because we've been following that on Instagram.
I bought a lot of like microgreens last year, and I always had to order them online. They always came with like loads of plastic packaging, and I was
Yeah.
like, I wonder if they are like difficult to grow because I have a garden, which I'm
Mhm.
not really like. I just grow like easy stuff.
Sure.
I just
Yeah.
like put it in there and let it grow.
Yeah.
So I was like, I wonder how difficult that would be. And I actually looked into it and I bought some seeds and it turned out it's just so easy.
To
So
grow
I
your
got,
own.
honestly, it's just like the easiest stuff to grow.
It's amazing. So for those of you out there, because I know for me, yeah, you have to buy like the big package of microgreens at the grocery store, and
Aren't
then
they expensive?
I don't end up using them all, and then I'm throwing a
Mhm.
bunch of them out. And so just and there's nothing like when it comes to garnish, when it's fresh out of the garden, it holds longer.
Absolutely. And they're so tasty. Plus, for food photographers, it's like whatever you put, like whatever dish you have, you just put some microgreens on it and it just looks incredible.
It
And
just
it tastes
pops.
really, really good. Yeah, it just pops right away.
And you've got a good variety too. There's definitely some like different tones of greens and the purples in
Purples, I
there.
love purples. Yes.
That's awesome. Well,
Purple
for
basil,
those,
there's like a purple radish,
yeah,
like lots of different varieties.
wow.
It's really actually very satisfying. I found it like, every morning I go there and check my friends, are they growing all right? Everything's fine here.
Everybody doing what they're supposed to be doing,
Yes,
getting along.
yes.
I love it. Well, for those of you, it looks like, oh, tomatoes. We've got people who love, Christina says
Mm,
she loves to photograph damson plums.
oh
Jennifer
yeah.
Thompson says cherries. Paul Gregory says fruit as heroes and also as complementary products to a hero. Absolutely agree on that
Mm,
one. Oh, Greta says her only surviving microgreens are mustard and mint. Hey,
mm.
mint is great because it is a pretty hardy herb.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, and
awesome.
you're not really supposed to put green, like mint in the garden, like in the bed, because it
Mm.
grows so wild, it will like take over. So you're supposed to like plant it in a pot or something, because otherwise, like your whole garden will be like just mint.
Totally mint.
But
Well,
mustard seeds are like super easy and they're really pretty,
yeah,
really tasty again. Brilliant, brilliant herb to microgreen.
brilliant.
It's not really a herb.
Yeah, let's
Do you
see.
call
Oh,
them microgreens in US? Okay.
microgreens. But we screw all sorts of things up. We call it Nikon instead of Nikon, and
Yeah, yeah.
we just think that, we've got it all figured out over
Okay.
here. I'm trying to think the metric system,
Yeah.
Celsius,
Oh,
all
that's
these
nice.
things. Forget about it. I love it. Oh, Dana says peas in pods. That is a beautiful subject
Yes, yes,
indeed.
that's beautiful.
I love it. Okay, well, let's go ahead and let's jump into our conversation here today. So, for those of you who are not familiar, not aware, Bee has written, photographed, and released with a wonderful publisher a book called How to Photograph Food, and it became available. It was published in the UK here recently, and it is coming to the US as of September 29th. And so, How to Photograph Food, if you have not already ordered your copy, you can grab it in the link down below. I've got it down in the description box so you can get your hands on it. I'm already, watching everybody open theirs on Instagram and Instagram stories. I'm like, I can already tell it's a beautiful book. So I just can't
Thank
wait
you.
to be inspired from it. But before we get into that, I mean, obviously it's all about food photography, and that is what you are known for. And that is what kind of seems to get you up in the morning and get you excited. So can you take us back to where that food photography journey first started? Like when did you pick up the
Oh.
camera in earnest, not like in
Oh.
sort of that accidental like I'm taking pictures of
Oh.
stuff, but really focusing on
Yeah. Well, I
photography?
feel like there had been a lot of events during my life that led to food photography. And honestly, Joni, we could be here for like another half an hour and I'd still be answering this first question, and everybody in front of the screen will be like nodding off. Because it's just such a wild and long life story. But
Mhm.
I think to like cut the long story short, the moment when I bought the camera, because like nobody in my family nor in my crowd among my friends like did photography.
Mm.
So like what happened was I was actually going to university. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, like no idea, but everybody around me was telling me, you love studying and going to university is a good thing to do. So I applied and I got accepted. And my family is all happy, my friends celebrating, everybody's excited. And the next morning, I wake up, I lie in bed, staring at ceiling, and I'm just thinking, like projecting my life. Okay, so I'm dedicating 5 years of my life to do this. There will be no time to do any side projects,
Mm.
any, creativity projects, nothing, because it will be intense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm going to enjoy it. I don't know what job I'm going to have after that. I don't know if I'm going to enjoy that job. And I just had that thought, is this really what you want to do? Or is this something you want to do because everybody around you told you it's a good thing to do? And, it's so funny because I've never had that thought before until I actually got accepted and it was happening. And I just thought, is that fear speaking?
Yeah.
Or is that my gut, that inner wisdom telling me, run away while you can?
Yeah.
And I didn't go. So I didn't go to uni. And I was like, what now? What am I curious about? What did I always want to learn, but never had time to do? And photography kept popping, somewhere in between the lines.
Yeah.
And I had some savings that I put aside for the degree. And I bought a camera. So that's basically how I got the camera and how I started. It was like nothing to do with food at that stage. I didn't even know food photography was a thing when I was getting a camera.
Such
Like
a strange
when I
little
found
niche.
out there were people who did food, like specialize in food, I was like, what? Like, is that even possible? Can you photograph food for a living? Like,
Who
I was like
knew?
mind blown. But
Yeah.
this is more or less how it that was like a turning point.
Absolutely. Well, and that's a very interesting distinction that you make. And I think one that can be really hard to navigate, that difference between feeling fearful about something, scared about something,
Mm-hmm.
versus that feeling in your gut that this is not where you're supposed to be
Mm-hmm.
going. I mean, it's hard to tease out this, like specifically what makes those feelings different, but how was there something inside you that helped you know that it wasn't fear?
It actually, you know what? It wasn't until later
Mm,
that I thought it was wisdom. But at that time, I didn't know. I had
yeah.
no idea whether it
Yeah.
was fear or wisdom.
Yeah.
It
Well,
wasn't until a couple of years later when I looked back at that moment and thought, that was the best decision of my life. Yes.
yes,
Yes,
absolutely. And we're
I
so
did something
glad you
right.
made that decision.
But
That
at
seemed
that
like the good
time,
choice.
I had no idea. I
Yeah.
had no idea.
Yeah.
I
But
think I was just really afraid of not having time to do other creative projects because I've always been quite creative. So
mhm,
I knew, okay, that would be it.
yeah,
And not knowing, like, this is a huge risk, not knowing whether you even gonna enjoy that thing,
for sure.
you know,
For
and
sure.
end up, and end up being in debt as well, because like in the UK, the tuition is like enormous.
Huge. Well, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that was a great point too that you made, that you keyed into, am I doing this because other people want me to, as opposed to something I
Mm-hmm.
genuinely want to do. So perhaps that's a really good litmus test too for, anyone who's, because I'm sure there are people here watching today who are thinking, oh man, I'm in that situation. And so at any
Mm-hmm.
time you're doing something because you feel you should, or
Mm-hmm.
because other people are saying this is where you should be going. So I think it's a great
Because we
learning lesson there.
influence, we're
What's
so
that?
influenced by people around us. And
Yeah.
there were like my teachers,
Mm-hmm.
my family, my friends. So there were people I really trust
Yeah.
and who I listened to,
Yeah.
and it wasn't until I actually got the letter that said you are accepted that I thought, is this my dream? Or am I influenced by what everybody around me is saying to me?
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, I never questioned that before until I actually got a letter and I was
Yeah.
like, interesting.
That's when you put your feet to the fire. Well,
Mm-hmm.
so fast forward through that journey and then discovering food and digging into it and creating some incredible imagery, that at a certain point then you
It
were.
wasn't that incredible at the beginning, Let's just
No,
mention that.
was it not so glamorous,
Oh
B?
gosh, it was terrible. No, let's be
Oh,
honest. it was so bad. Let's be honest. It was like really bad.
Like in terms of like looking back at those old images and looking at like what was terrible.
Oh gosh, everything. The food didn't even look appetizing. And I knew it while I was creating, but I couldn't do any better. I was like, oh, when am I gonna be good at it? I even remember saying to my husband, if I ever figure that out, how to take good photos, I'm gonna teach people how to do it. If I
Aha.
ever figure out how to take good photos of food, because I don't know yet, I haven't figured it
Yes.
out yet.
Yes.
But if I will, I knew how hard it was because you put all your heart in it,
Mhm.
all your imagination in it, all your experience that you have at that moment, and it's
Mhm.
not working out. And you're like, oh, when is it gonna come?
But so there's that little thing inside you which continues to propel you forward to continue to pursue to get to that
Yeah,
place.
I think it was the enjoyment,
Yeah.
like just getting really excited, not being great at the final photo. Obviously, didn't always feel great,
Yeah.
but the process felt amazing.
Yes.
You
So
know,
you got
the,
addicted to that feel of this is
yes,
this is the creative mode of expression that you enjoy the
yes.
most.
And some photos I felt like, oh, this is actually really good. And now I'm looking back and no, it was not. But, good job for trying.
But you can also appreciate, because I definitely do this looking back at old work. I see what I was trying to do, and I
Yes.
appreciate that that vision was in my head. I wasn't sure how to execute it. I had no clue what white balance was in a lot of situations,
Hmm.
but I had that vision, and I feel like those sort of like little moments of wins where you're seeing it in the moment, that helps to carry you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree.
So you had the messy middle, the figuring it out stage, the coming to the place where suddenly, oh, okay, now we're cooking. Was there something that you think that kind of helped you round that corner from, was it just a gradual progression over time of building your
Hmm.
skills and learning things, or was it like there was some sort of pivotal moment where suddenly the food went from not appetizing in photos to looking
Yes,
appetizing?
there were definitely two photo shoots that I remember. First photo shoot I did, like I did a lot of those like bad average photos that were okay because we are like in this process of, I was really addicted to learning. I think
Mm.
that's what kept me going, like learning and finding out new things. And I remember doing this one photo shoot, and it was, I don't know, it just worked.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I'll never take a better photo than this. This is the
This is
best
the
I can do.
ultimate.
This is the best I can do. Like, I will never be able to like beat that photo shoot ever.
Yeah.
And it was personal work because I wasn't working for the clients then. And then after that, few average photo shoots came back. And
Mhm.
then I did it again. I was like, wow, this is a really good photo. And I started connecting the dots.
Yeah.
Why did those photos work?
Yeah.
And analyzing and thinking about why they worked and how I can apply those things to my next photo shoots. But it
Mhm.
was definitely a progression.
Mhm. Right. It's not an overnight thing.
Oh my
And
goodness,
I
absolutely
mean, and
not.
that any good food photo or any photos that we're proud of, it's the result of, I'd say, like a million little things all going right at the very
At the
same
same
moment,
time. Absolutely.
which is a lot
Like
to
there is so
consider.
many decisions and so many little things that go into this photo, exactly like what you just said.
Yeah.
It's at the same, like at the right moment.
Yeah. And over time you start to internalize so that you're not necessarily thinking about, oh well, this is going to impact this, because some of those things become second nature
Hmm.
in that work. But so you certainly have a heart for education, kind of born out of this personal experience of like, man, I just want to help other people to get through this process. And so that is how to photograph food. It's taking all those concepts and things, and I know I can't wait to dig into it. But in terms of that book writing process, how long ago? Just take us back to the timeline wise. I mean, clearly here we are today celebrating the publishing, but this is uh, many
Yes, and I was
months
actually
in
talking to Derek
process.
about it. I was
Yeah.
talking to Derek about it. It's like the publishing month, because like my book was published really pretty much like 3 weeks ago here in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And it will be published like in 2 weeks in US. So it's like a month of this publishing time. It's so different to the entire book writing process, because it's like, it feels like I'm on social media all the time and things are happening, you inviting me for a chat, and there is just so many things which I am extremely grateful for that they are happening. But I just want to keep it real here, because for the 15 months I've been sitting in my joggers with a hairband on my head, and like the most exciting social experience was talking to my postman,
Yeah.
basically. So it really is just like keeping things into perspective and
Mm-hmm.
keeping things real,
Yeah.
because it's such a long process. And sometimes we see, hey, this person published this book, or this person, I don't know, even created this online course,
Mm-hmm.
did this amazing workshop. We see the final result
Mm-hmm.
and we focus on that, and that's really exciting, but we don't actually see the behind the scenes. And I think from the very beginning, since I was able to announce the book and the publishing time was coming,
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to share that process, because that process is just like, so important to share.
It is.
So that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that's what I did, on like Instagram, just like being honest about what the journey looked like.
Yeah.
And so it was like back in 2018, we like 2020 September,
Yeah.
but like the book really started back in April 2018. Well, I didn't start writing then,
Sure. But
but I
that's
got
when that
like,
seed was planted.
yes, that's when the seed was planted. And it's just like, it really is a story from a movie, because I received an email, and it was an email from a publisher in US, actually, asking me if I would be interested in writing a cookbook.
Hmm.
And I never thought about writing any book before that. And I was like, somewhere deep down, I knew it was not for me, not at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I just had to be really honest with myself, be grateful for this opportunity, but I just knew it wasn't for me. And this thought came to my head, and I was like, maybe if it was a food photography book, maybe I'd feel different. But that was just one thought. And then I just carried on with my life as normal and work as normal. And then a week later, I received this email, and it's titled A Food Photography Book. And the question goes, have you ever thought about writing a food photography book? And I'm like a week ago,
Funny you should ask.
like, universe, is that you? I just thought it was just so weird.
Very odd.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like the world can always surprise, like the life and the world can always surprise you. And that was
Mhm.
definitely that surprise moment when I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So we just like exchanged few emails, decided to meet up with the book commissioner, and the conversation really like went from there.
Yeah.
Um, what kind of book they wanted to commission me for, and then what I could bring to the table, and see if our visions work together well. Because I
Yeah.
think that's like the most important thing.
Absolutely. Because my impression is that, it's all kind of very specific to the publisher that you're working with in terms of the vision that's being created, sort of that creative license. And, I get the impression that a lot of this book is very authentically you and your experience and your vision. And so it's exciting to see. It sounds like there was definitely a match there in terms of
Mm.
vision.
I think so. I
Yeah.
really think so.
Yeah.
It was really important to me, like, to write a book that would sound like me,
Mhm.
and I was like being really honest from the very beginning. Like, I will write the book, but
Yep.
it needs to look a certain way. And I'm not talking about the look, or the design was important to me as
Sure.
well, but the voice
Yes.
and the content was the most important. That was
Yeah.
like the priority. And then seeing what their reaction is going to be and if
Yeah.
they are happy with that. So although they really wanted to commission me for a food photography guide,
Mm-hmm.
so that was like the specification, that's what we want you to create. But hey, tell us what goes into creating a beautiful photograph.
Mm.
And, you know, and what do you want to write about? What's
Yes.
important to you? So
Yes.
everything you will find in the book is what's important to me in food photography.
Yeah. Which is wonderful. So in that process, so you kind of came to this realization, okay, here's what we're going to be talking about. Here's the focus. And so you shared this in Instagram stories, the process of coming up with the blad. Can you tell
Mm-hmm.
us like what that is, what that entails, and what's the goal of that? The
Mm-hmm.
BLAD, right?
BLAD, that's
Okay.
correct. Um, yeah, so that was very new to me. But that was like, I think every publisher is different.
Mm-hmm.
So I am not 100% sure if every publisher does that.
Mm-hmm.
But Ilex, which is a part of Octopus Group Publishing here in London, in the UK, they create blads. So if they have an idea for the book, they will ask, you know, photographer or a writer to create a blad. They
Mm-hmm.
work together with the person. So the blad is book, I just have to think now, book layout and design.
Okay.
So it's a book layout and design, and that includes table of content.
Oh,
And they asked me to write 3 chapters,
okay.
like three, you know, whatever chapters I picked, it didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And that was designed in like a little booklet, and they take this to a book fair, and the closest book fair was, I think it was in Frankfurt in October. So
Okay.
they take it there, they speak to people, they speak to other publishers, and just see how much interest the book generates.
Yeah.
And on this really depends whether they are keen on creating a book or not, because if there isn't much interest, they just say, well, the idea didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
We either think about a different idea
Yeah.
or just like give up on this book.
Mm-hmm.
Or if there is enough interest, then, you know, the book creation process starts. So I didn't know until October. So we created Blad, I think it was July, August.
Okay.
And then I didn't know until October what was gonna happen.
Okay. So it's a little bit of some like waiting
Mm-hmm.
game going, is this, I've put this thing out there because I've got to think that takes a good bit of work to come up with a table of contents. I
Oh,
mean, that is
oh.
a,
Tell me about
especially when you're not necessarily like you have probably a good general idea of what's in the book, but like
it.
that's getting to like very granular
Specific.
nitty gritty very fast.
Yes, I was like, I can write 10 chapters. There is no way I can write a table of content. No way.
No way.
Like, no way.
Right?
They were like, okay, let us explain how you can approach it.
Okay.
And maybe this will help.
Okay.
So like really this helped me, you know, how you would approach this. And also for me, it was like, if I cannot change table of content
Yeah.
ever, like if I write this now and I
Uh-huh.
can never change it, like I cannot do it.
Right.
And they were like, no, relax. It's flexible. It's
Oh,
very
good.
flexible.
Good.
So I was
So,
like, okay, that actually doesn't feel that bad if they tell you, no, it's flexible and you can change things around, as long as it's like a guide on food photography and you can like swap some of the chapters and rename some of the sections, totally fine. And we did. We transformed it quite a lot.
did you? What
Mhm,
were because yeah, you had mentioned there was a specific chapter altogether that wasn't in the original that got
mhm.
added. How, tell me about that. Like what happened that suddenly you're like, "Oh, I can't leave this out."
Mm-hmm. So we added a creative process chapter,
Okay.
and that was not in the original Blad. I think we kind of focused at the beginning of writing a table of content. We focused on what made what goes into a beautiful photograph creating a beautiful photograph. So we focus on that. So obviously, lighting, we're going to talk about gear, and props are important, and styling and composition and editing.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I wanted mindset to be one of the chapters.
Right.
And that was pretty much it. But then as I started creating and writing things, I kept thinking, well, ideas, inspiration, that's so important.
Right.
I was like, it's not in the book. And then
Yeah.
I was like, gosh, storytelling and how to approach storytelling. Like, this is so important.
Yeah.
Again, in the creative process, we all create differently. And I think it's nice to break things down. And I know I'm always curious how other photographers create.
Oh, for sure.
So, breaking things down. And I was like, so I kind of said, well, there are things that are important and there are not in the book right now.
Mhm.
What are we going to do about it? So
Yes.
we created a whole new chapter.
Yes. And yeah, it's got to be a little scary, like, oh gosh, this wasn't here, but now we're sort of adding this. Was that kind of further on than in the writing process
It
after
was,
you'd
yes.
established much of the book?
It was actually, I think it was the inspiration chapter. That was
Okay.
the last chapter I've written. Like, that was the
Okay.
last chapter. And that's like, it's not really in the middle of the book, but I would say it's like the fifth chapter, and there is like seven.
Okay.
So we really like added it till like at the very end.
Yeah. Do you remember where you started? Like, what was the first, like, in terms of the writing? So you've finished the table of contents. What was from a writing perspective? Where did you
Beginning.
start? The
I
beginning.
started from the beginning. Yeah.
Yes. Which is,
Um,
where is that for you?
so that was like really like, and actually beginning is transformed a little bit as well. But it really is about what's going to be in the book,
Mhm.
what I wanted people to get out of this book, what's important in photography,
Yeah.
and I thought for me it was great to start from there because it kind of shaped the whole idea.
Yes.
I'm not going to write about this that way or about that way, because those are the things important to me.
Yeah. No, that's well, and so something too that you had shared that happened through the course of the writing of the book is you discovered naps. Some it seemed that there were some
Do you take
afternoon.
naps? Are you a nap person?
Not naturally. I wish I could. My husband, he can fall asleep like park benches, the floor, standing up. Like he can sleep
Good for
anywhere.
you.
Me, I'm like Princess and the Pea. I need the perfect situation, everything. But it looked like, were you a nap person before you
Same.
wrote the
No,
book?
no, I'm same as you. Never had a nap in my entire life, I don't think.
Yeah.
I actually always thought that's interesting how people can actually nap.
Right.
Like, that was like such a foreign concept to me. Like, what is that thing? Like, my husband's the same. He's just like, I'm just gonna have a nap,
You're like,
and falls asleep. And I'm like, wow, And so I discovered that during the editing process.
mm.
Oh, it's life changing.
Because I mean, what was it about the writing process that sort of inspired you, that because clearly there's so much output happening that your body like physically needs some
Hmm.
rest. W- Were you like, there was just one day when you got super tired, or how did you come across
I
that?
was tired, like the during the the writing process itself was quite long.
Yes.
So it was like 9 months, and I
Mm-hmm.
had good breaks in between.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I felt tired, I just had a break. During editing process, there were deadlines,
Mm,
and there was no like, oh, I'm just gonna have a break now. It was like, I cannot have a break because it's so intense and we need to finish by a certain date,
yep.
and the book has to go to the designer. There is just so many moving parts, and you cannot be late with your part because then everybody else is late around.
Right. It's like
And there is
domino effect.
yes, there is a proofreader booked, so you cannot be late for that, and it's just a lot of moving parts. So I'd be tired, and Derek would be saying to me, just have a nap during the, like in the middle of the day, have a nap. And I'm like, I can't have a nap. It's not like I'm going to have a nap. And he's just like, just try it. Let's
Yeah.
just put the blinds down, just try it. So I did. And for the first probably 4 days, I didn't even fall asleep. I
Yeah.
was just lying there. I was like, okay, half an
I'm
hour.
supposed to be doing this. I'll just lay here.
But like the fifth or the sixth day, I actually fell asleep for half an hour,
There you
woke
go.
up like a totally new person. Like it's so, I mean, honestly, it's not like I knew how much people praise naps before.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm becoming one of those people right now. Like, oh my God. Like it just felt like, when you have a good night's sleep and you wake up and you can just do so much more.
Yeah.
So it felt like this. It felt like I had 2 mornings. So I had
Wow.
like morning when I was like super productive. I would be giving like 100% of myself into this project, writing this and
Hmm.
whatever. And then have a nap and I'm ready to do it again.
That's
Like
so
it's honestly awesome. So,
that's
and
so good.
since then, I literally took a nap every single day. I'd be like 2 o'clock nap time, bye.
Yeah.
And I do
No.
that every single day, entire 5 months.
Wow. That's so good though, because I think, yeah, we can get in that mindset where it's like, but I'm on deadline and I can't stop. I just have to go, 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 go. But in that, you can run yourself so ragged that you're not being productive anymore. So that's such a great reminder for all of us on any sort of big
Hmm.
project to take that time for rest because it will exponentially impact your productivity.
Yes, it's so weird because it's like you think, like you said, you're tired, but you don't want to go to sleep because you have work to do. But
Right.
then this work takes you longer because you are tired. So it's actually better to have like half an hour or an hour nap. You get up and you can actually finish that work in a shorter, like it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, for
Yes.
those of you who are in the chat right now, how many nappers do we have going on? How many of you love naps? And for those of you who have any nap strategies, clearly Bees is just lay there for 30 minutes, even if you don't fall asleep, get your body in that mode. But if anybody has some good nap
Yes, I'd
strategies,
love to
feel free
hear
to
that.
share those. So in terms of, I mean, clearly there's a lot of photographs in this book, a lot of photography, through the course of writing this book. And I think sometimes, as an educator, when you are teaching something, you suddenly learn so much more about that thing. And clearly you went into this book knowing a lot about food photography, but has this had an impact on your work at all, just in terms of your photography?
Absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. So much.
Like
I
in what
feel like
ways?
I'm also much more like my head is much more organized,
Mm,
that's definitely something I like. Everything is organized in there. Like I've never been like this before. Like everything has its place in my mind now, which is really, really good.
yeah.
But definitely what you've said, you even have a concept that you enjoy but you never like dig deeper into, like
Mm,
this gave me an opportunity to dig deeper into some of the things and think, why didn't I think of digging deeper into that before? So definitely learning new things and just like really exploring photography in new ways.
yes. Did you kind of, once the book was completed, you submitted it, it's, in the hands of the powers that be at that point. How did that feel?
Oh, I think I'm still like in the middle of processing some of the things. It will
Yeah.
probably take me like another like couple of months to really name everything.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know how that felt. It was
Yeah.
just such a roller coaster of emotions.
Hmm.
Like every emotion that a human can ever experience, you experience during the writing process. You
Yes.
really do.
Yes.
And so it's really like a roller coaster of like different emotions. So obviously you happy because like at some points, some stages, I was like, we're never gonna finish that thing. Like just never finish that thing. You just
Yeah.
um like there is a part in a Big Magic book when Elizabeth Gilbert is talking to some songwriter, and he says some of the songs like come to life really easily, like
Mm-hmm.
really easily, and then some songs is like digging out the potatoes.
Mm.
So some chapters felt like that, like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm like digging out those potatoes, you know. And we just, there, it's like never ending. It's like we still transforming things, and we're still changing things, and we're still adding things, and we're still cutting things. It's like, are we ever like gonna finish that?
Yes.
So actually when the finishing, when it actually comes to the, you're like, oh my, what now? What now? What am I gonna do now?
You've crossed that. Well, and for anybody who doesn't own it, it's a highly recommend. It's actually sitting here, right here, because in the preparation for this call, we chatted a bit, and you had said that how great it was to read that book after having written the book, and that you saw that book with fresh eyes. And so I just finished reading it last night, and the very end, for anybody who hasn't read it, I just have to tell you, the very end, she shares a story about this guy who dresses up in a lobster
Mm,
costume, and shows up to this fancy party. I don't want to spoil it for you, but there I am just reading it, and I'm tearing up and I'm crying. I'm like, oh, Elizabeth Gilbert, you get me. And so it's
so
for
good.
anybody who's ever struggled with that creative process, and is this normal, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I feel like there's a lot of probably head games that go into the book writing process too.
It's photography, right? I mean, the photography itself needs like you need a strong mindset to be a photographer. I think that's something I realized really early on. Like, hey, my photography skills are one thing, but while I'm honing my photography skills, I feel like I've got to work on my mindset here too. I don't know. Did you feel like this as well during your creative journey?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, there's definitely those moments where, yeah, you just start to really second guess yourself. And I feel like in reading Big Magic, the thing that I took away from it, and I think any big projects that we work on, whether that be shooting somebody's cookbook or a really
Mhm.
big photo brief for a client, or, any number of things that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves for, I feel like, and you kind of touched on this earlier, is that if you approach it from, like, when you were working on the table of contents, if you approach it from this perspective of, this has to be the end all be all perfect thing, unchangeable, unmovable, like, you put so much pressure on it, as opposed to coming at it from more of a, and that's kind of more of that scarcity mentality, as opposed to coming
Mhm.
at it from, Brene Brown talks a lot about this sort of mentality of coming at it from a place of plenty, that
Mhm.
that it's going to work out. Like, this is the best that I'm doing in this moment, and this is great, and this is not final, and this doesn't define me, and this isn't permanent and forever, right? That
Mhm.
I feel like suddenly when
But
we
the
make
book
that, what's
is.
that? It is, but I feel like
Yeah,
there's, this is the journey of life.
it is. And yes, I've learned, I read this book before. I actually read this book just before I started writing a book. I was actually rereading it because I was going to Elizabeth Gilbert workshop in London that
Oh
she
my
was doing.
goodness.
And it was like a
Wow.
big magic workshop. And then I read it afterwards, and it's so weird that we can be a few months more experienced. I think that's the right word. Few months more experienced, read the same book and get new things out of it. That's
Mhm.
how I felt before. Before writing a book, I read it from a photographer's perspective, and I got so much out of it because creativity, no matter what you do, is so similar, the creative process. But after the book journey, I read it and I was like, oh my God, there is just so many new things I'm learning here, like so many things I can resonate with. And, she talks about fear so beautifully. I love the way she talks about fear. And, it was first time I ever written a book. Obviously, super exciting, super grateful for this opportunity. Very excited sitting down and, starting the writing process. And
Yes.
then fear comes in. it does comes in, and self-doubt comes in. And she kind of, it was just so good to, yeah, I've always admired her, so it was, for me, it was really good to hear it from somebody I really admired,
Mhm.
that she actually said, hey, it's normal. Fear is there every time you do something creative. Every time you do something new, fear is there. You just don't let it drive. You just don't let it drive. And at some point, I was like, I called my fear, my book fear was called George.
You
I was like,
named it.
George is showing up. Hey, George, I see you, and I feel like every time I laugh at my emotions,
Yeah.
it's kind of, because I'm not giving it energy, it kind of like goes away a little bit. So
Mhm.
every time I bring humor to my emotions, they like, oh my God, she's laughing at me. Okay, let's back off. So I felt that really helped me, just like, it's there, okay, we'll just have to do it together. And then I thought about any photography project that I did in the past.
Mhm.
Hey, fear was there,
Mm.
self-doubt was there. Hey, maybe it's a part of the creative process. I mean, it's not an amazing part of the process, it's actually a really annoying part of the process. But if I'm doing this creative thing and I'm creating something and I'm really enjoying there, at some point, the fear will come too. So
Mhm.
it's just like, I think I understood it's just part of the process.
Yeah.
And I just have to, if I want to do this, the fear is going to be there.
Yeah.
So I just found, for me, it was just like, sometimes a little bit of humor makes it a little bit easier. And I think she also talks a lot about removing ego from the whole process.
Mhm.
I feel like I've always been really good at observing my ego. And with the book, it's hard because you're like, okay, if this thing is not going to work out, your ego is going to suffer. But then if this thing is going to work out, then your ego is like, hey, I'm so happy. So you kind of have to like remove the ego completely.
Mhm.
And I love the part she's talking about taking it seriously when you work on it.
Mhm.
Like, put 100% of yourself in it, love it, cherish it. Once it's finished, let it go.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, just let it go. And I
Yeah.
thought, well, it's like you really taking this seriously, but then you take the result lightly. It's a little bit of a paradox, but
For sure.
I think it's so important for our sanity and for us creative people.
Yes, because that's going to be such a scary thing to, I mean, you've poured so much work and energy and time into this book, and now it's out in the world. And of course, all I see are glowing remarks and thoughts, and but there's certainly going to be critics, or the opportunity for critics, or other thoughts, or people who don't understand what it was that you were trying to communicate, or
Mm-hmm.
any variety of things, because it's I feel like she had a line, I don't know if you remember it, but it was something about the things that are happening in other people's heads are none of your business.
She does, yeah.
And I
Yeah,
felt
she
like,
does. Like, and also everybody has the right to have their own opinion.
mhm,
Everybody has the right. That's what she says in the book.
yeah,
From her experience, and from like, obviously Eat, Pray and Love was such a huge success. And she was like saying people loved it, but there were people who didn't love it.
mhm,
And that's what she says, if she based her a picture of herself based on what people were saying, well, you have a little bit of a problem here, because there are like totally different opinions.
yeah,
So like, really letting that go. And with photography, I feel it's easier because you just go and create new work. With book, it's a little bit more difficult, because like, what now?
right. There it is.
With
It's out in the
photograph, if
world.
the photograph, however photograph is received, you just go
Yes.
and create a new photograph.
Right.
It lives on Instagram for a day, it lives for a couple of months on Pinterest, maybe on Google for a little bit longer, but
Mm.
you just go and create a new work.
Yeah.
Here it's like, okay, what now? you know
Well, and
so
that's
that
why
was
I
the
like the photography medium too. You know, I always say I wished I could have been a painter, but I don't have the patience for painting.
yes.
That's why I do photography
Yes, I
because
do
it's
the photography.
faster.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's much faster.
So no, that's good. So for those of you who are in the Amazon cart right now purchasing How to Photograph Food by Bee, you can also order if you've not already own it.
Yes.
Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. They're a great read together.
Yeah, great read together. It's an amazing book. I love Elizabeth's spirit and her mindset. Her mind is just so inspiring, and
Indeed.
how
Yeah.
she's just able to be creative and also so down to earth.
Yes. So real about it.
Yeah, so real about it. Exactly. So
Yeah.
real.
Well, thank you for inspiring me to reread that one. It's such a good read. For those of you who are it looks like there's definitely a lot of folks in the comments. Fenette says Big Magic is her favorite book.
Mhm.
Christina Dinoya says love Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, and she also loves the TED Talk. So definitely a lot of fans out there.
Yes.
So for those of you who are in the chat right now, how many of you have ordered your copy of How to Photograph Food, or if you are in Europe, in the UK, have received it? I want to see in the comment section. Looks like a couple folks have just picked up their copies. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. But let's go ahead, and as we've got just a couple minutes here before we wrap up, we'll open it up for questions. If anybody has questions for B, just in terms of the book writing
Thank you.
process, the book, everything. Let's see. Oh, ego is the enemy of another great book. Oh man, such a great point. Stephanie says she hates naps and she ends up more tired. Oh,
Oh, interesting. Oh,
maybe
that's
it's all
interesting.
about how long you're napping for.
Yes, apparently half an hour, because if you do longer, you kind of like, yeah, I've heard people recommend, I think it's 30 to 45 minutes. If you do longer, you kind of in this like sleep cycle and you get up. I don't know. I don't really know the science behind it. But
Yes.
there is definitely science behind it.
So B is going to leave her journey of food photography to become a sleep scientist. No.
Yeah. Or just like a professional napper. That would be a thing.
Exactly. Add that one to the
Our
resume.
husbands would be really good, qualified for those jobs.
Yeah. Let's see. Let me see what we've got coming in here. Oh, okay. We've got some questions coming in. When will the book be available in India?
Well, it's already been available and now it's not available. So I will definitely chat to my publisher to see what's happened, because it
Mhm.
was available for like 2 weeks. And then I heard from people it's not available again. So I
Okay.
think they only probably had like a bunch of books that they sold out. And hopefully there are some being sent there. And
Gotcha.
hopefully it's going to be
Okay.
available soon.
Well, if we keep an eye probably on your Instagram, you're great about communications
Yes,
there. Is
I'll
that your
definitely.
primary platform of communication for folks who want to
It
keep
is.
up
Yes.
with you?
Yes.
Excellent. B. Lobus. Oh, Jessica Duke, is the cover of your book the only difference? Because there is a different cover for the UK and the US.
Yes, there is a different cover. The cover and the spelling. So American version obviously has American spelling, and then UK has the UK spelling. So that's the only difference. It's actually quite fun that they are like different covers, because you have like the cool one and the warm one, and
Yeah,
then one with like loads of things happening and the other a little bit plainer. It's quite fun how different they are, but still, created by the same person.
absolutely. But so other than that, it's just the cover is the only difference
Yes,
and the spelling. So
and the
C
spelling.
O C O L O R, right? Color.
Color, yes, it's different.
Yes.
We have you. You don't have
Right.
you. Mhm.
Something else that one of the spellings, I felt so terrible. So at some point I was on Rachel Korenek's, one of her course websites, and I was looking at something and I was like, oh no, she's misspelled enrollment. And so I messaged her. I was like, oh no, I think there's a typo. And she's like, no, 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 it's just you weirdo Americans with your spelling enrollment different. Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness. Okay, got it. Duly noted. She said it much more tactfully than that, but I was like, oh yeah, just Food Tech Life wants to know, does the book go into doing food photography as a career? So more the business side of food photography.
Not really. There is like a little part where I share the shift in my mind that really helped me build a mindset around being a business owner, but it's a very small part. So if you are looking for a business book, this is not the one.
Yeah, I would say if Food Tech Life, a good recommendation would be Andrew Scrivani's That Photo Makes Me Hungry. Is that
Yes.
what it's called?
Yes.
He shares a lot about the business process in there. So
Okay.
that is a
I actually
great primer.
haven't read it yet, but it's
Yeah.
interesting. I'm glad you've shared it. Thank you. And
Yeah.
your course, you have a
Yes.
course.
I do, and it's opening up on the 24th. So next Thursday, enrollment will open for full-time framework for anybody
Yay.
who wants in on that. Let's see. Oh, good question, B. Do you also develop recipes?
Very rarely. There is one magazine I actually work with that I do some recipes for, but that would be like 1, 2 recipes a month. I really like working with them, and it's really relaxed atmosphere. But usually it's just photography.
Yeah, that's the main focus. Oh, good question from Jessica. How does it work in terms of the rights to your images in terms of the book?
What do you mean exactly by that?
So, like, just in terms of like, do they own the copyright to those images? Are they still your images?
Yeah.
What's that agreement there?
So again, if you are working with a publisher, whether it's your cookbook or any photography book, definitely make sure you are happy with what's in the contract. I don't think th- I don't think there is any publisher that will have the copyrights for the photos. You are always the owner, but you just have to make sure you are happy with the license you give them.
Mhm.
So, is that license exclusive only for them, or non-exclusive, which means you can sell the photos later to magazines or stock or wherever.
That they're
So that's
yours.
definitely something, great question, something to pay attention to, the license.
Yeah,
But I don't think any publisher would ever ask for the copyrights
yeah.
for the
If they
photos.
are, that's when your red flags and your ears
Yeah,
perk up and you
that's
go.
when you don't write a book with them. That's when the red flag, that's true.
Well, I've got a great final question from Fanette. She wants to know, can you talk about your mentorship offer? Because you just recently
Oh,
shared this on Instagram that
hi,
you're offering
Fanette.
mentorship.
Hi, Fanette. I love that you're watching us. Thank you. Yes, so I'm doing a free 3 months mentorship program, which is open for the readers of How to Photograph Food. And so originally I thought I'll have one mentee, but because we have 2 books and we have 2 covers, I thought, well, it will actually be fun to do 2. So the UK mentorship is already opened. The application is already open. So you can actually go to my Instagram, click the link in my profile. That will take you to the application. You can just fill it in. It's just to say thank you for all the love and support I've received, and all the love and support towards the book. I've never offered one-to-ones before, so I'm like extremely excited about it. I have to tell you, like, I was writing the application, I felt like I was flying. I was just like so excited. I just cannot wait to read through people's applications, and just such an exciting process. So let me just tell you about it because I'm just getting so excited. I feel like I'm talking about not relating to Fanet's question. So there are two stages really. So there is like application stage. So you go, you have like 10 days to apply. Then I'll read through the applications and choose 5 people for a Zoom interview. And based on the application and the Zoom interview, I will choose one person to work with for 3 months for free and just mentor that person. So that's the UK. And then application for US readers will be open in October.
Excellent.
So everybody just apply.
Go ahead and head to, I believe I've got Bee's Instagram account linked in the description box below. And then I also just dropped it in the chat. So head on over there. All the details are over on her Instagram. Such a wonderful thing. And it's so fun too, kind of like full circle to where our conversation started when you kind of get that sense in yourself that like, oh, I'm not excited about this. Oh, I'm, not feeling good about it. But now here you are talking about mentorship and you are just lit up.
Yeah.
So it's clearly that internal intuition telling you that this is a
Yes, that's
great
definitely
thing.
the right thing to do. And it was from the beginning when I came with the idea, it just felt so right.
Yeah.
And I've never really had a chance to do one-to-ones because of the, work and everything, what was happening around. So this is like the perfect opportunity that I can actually do that and mentor someone for like 3 months and really like help them to reach their goals.
I love it. Well, thank you for doing that. And thank you so much for sharing your time with us today to talk about the book, going behind the scenes of it. And thank you for writing the book. I can't wait to read it. I can't wait to enjoy it and be inspired. But to everybody who hasn't already, I've got Bee's book, How to Photograph Food, is linked below, as well as her Instagram. We thank you for sharing your time with us. We know that your time is valuable. So hopefully you got some really great.
Thank you so much, Johnny, for having me and
Absolutely.
for the
My
conversation and
pleasure.
for your channel, because how much you've been doing for the community is, I am grateful. I love learning from you, and you just like such a ray of positive sunshine, in the world. So thank you so much for like doing so much for the community, for having me. And it's just such an honor and so grateful for everybody showing up and joining our conversation.
So many, and it's so fun. So many friendly faces and names that we know. So thank you to everybody. We hope you have a wonderful day. We hope you get a chance to do something creative. And with that, we'll sign off. So take care, everybody.
Bye.